You can't make people respect your boundaries, and you can't make them care about what you need. People ask me all the time, how can I make that happen? And I totally understand why you would want to be able to do that, but my answer is that you can't. And for people who grew up with abuse and neglect and who, as a result, have to teach themselves as adults how to interact with people, how to set boundaries, what to do when someone doesn't respect your boundaries, it seems like the problem is other people. And, sometimes, yes, it is other people. For example, when they attack or violate another person or steal from them. But a lot of the anger and frustration at other people that you might go through around boundaries is really caused by a misunderstanding about what a boundary is. So let's talk about that. Now, a lot of people ask me how they can get loved ones to better honor their boundaries, how to get them to be more sensitive about their CPTSD symptoms, for example. And it's totally normal and appropriate to want that kind of support and respect, but I'm going to say something very tough love here. You can ask a person to understand you and what you need, and you can even ask them to help you avoid getting triggered. But they are not under any obligation to do any of that. It's optional for them. That doesn't mean they don't care about you, and it doesn't mean they don't support you. And in fact, when they give you space to notice your own trauma reactions and to work on those inside yourself, sometimes that is the most loving and supportive thing they can do. And I'm going to tell you why I say that, even though you may have been told a lot of things, like that you have a right to people respecting your boundaries, even when your boundaries are extreme, even when you're acting out of a hurt place inside. Like, I don't actually think that's a right. It's your right to ask for what you want, for what you think would be helpful. But trying to force other people to help you manage your trauma reactions isn't fair. And it isn't going to work. In fact, it's a form of control. And everyone in our lives has the right not to be controlled by us. You have the right to ask, and you have the right not to spend time with people who don't go along with what you're asking for. But they have the right to be themselves. Now, someone who cares about you might be willing to change the way they do things if you ask them, but they might not. And PTSD thinking will tell you that someone you love, who you're attached to, who's doing something that bothers you, owes it to you to change. But I want to teach you why in any situation where you're not actually restrained, these people aren't actually doing anything to you. They're being themselves, which you may not like, but they're not preventing your healing. Okay, right now you're thinking, what? This is Anna going off the ledge here. But that's what I'm saying. When people do their own thing and give you space to work on your own triggers and learn to calm your own PTSD symptoms, you then have an opportunity to learn the only thing that really works or can be sustained, and that is self-regulation. When you're regulated, you have choices. And one of your choices, if you don't like what someone's doing, is to not be around them. And I mean, you don't like people drinking, right? For example, maybe you don't be around people drinking. When your brain is regulated, you might see more clearly that this person isn't really drinking at you, they're not doing anything wrong. Or you might see they're really a jerk, or they're a bully, or they drink too much. Maybe you ask them to change once or twice. If you ask them 3 times and they still don't change, well, now you're up against it. If you ask any more, if you just continue to keep, asking for the same thing over and over and they won't oblige, even if you succeed at making them do something, it's not going to bring that harmony and that good feeling of being supported and connected to that person. And that's what you're craving, right? So at that point, if change isn't going to happen, you either let go of your grievance or leave the relationship. Because if you push and nag and repeat the demand that they change, it'll only suck the soul out of you and them and everybody who has to deal with you too. So it's a beautiful idea that if someone would change, if they would just change, you would be okay. But even when you can get someone to strike that bargain with you, to try to fix you by being what you ask them to be, you're only putting your CPTSD into a hermetically sealed chamber. What prompts our healing is usually actually friction, problems. People do their thing around us, we get triggered, and it's impossible to control or avoid. So that's why so many people with childhood trauma end up retreating and getting as far away from people as they can. Isolation might prevent triggers, but it also prevents fulfillment. So our challenge is to stay away from those who would abuse us, and with everyone else, to be at peace with people as they are. Peace with people comes with knowing and accepting that healing happens inside. Other people in our lives, they matter, their behavior matters, but they don't have the power to heal us. And even if they were willing to try, they couldn't do it. They can't heal us. So have you been through this experience before where you're trying to help someone and they just won't change? Or when someone tries to help you? And this happens all the time, right? This could happen when you read a self-help book, or you see a therapist, or you ask a friend for advice, or when you watch one of my videos. I can't change you, and neither can anyone else. Maybe I can influence you, though, but only if you want to learn from me, only if you want to hear what I'm saying, and you think, oh, I'll give that a try. And even then, it only works if the obstacles that you carry around to learning and changing aren't in the way. So I'm not saying everything is a construct of our minds or our will. People do influence each other very deeply, very profoundly, for good and evil. And this is where I suggest you put your focus on choosing carefully who is going to influence you, and thinking carefully about how your behavior influences others. So let's talk about what is realistic for you to expect from other people. They can potentially provide a calm, safe environment. Not everyone can do that, and they can encourage you when you're freaked out and encourage you to get out your tools and deal with the disturbance within. So for me, the tools are a pen and paper, and people who love me will sometimes remind me, do you want to write your fears and resentments about this? I actually don't like it when people suggest that, but they're usually right. That is usually what will help me when I'm getting kind of aggravated. You will be amazed when you learn to regulate your trauma symptoms, the overreactions, the unreasonableness, the demands that we put on other people, because it seems like all that's needed is for them to change something about themselves. And you will be amazed how much easier it is for other people to love you and be close to you when you let that go. So how can you do this? When you're in that place where you want to make a demand on someone, it usually means it's time to do what I call stop and drop. Stop the action that's escalating conflict and drop into a chair where you can start writing your fears and resentments. That's one of the two techniques that are part of my daily practice that you always hear me going on and on about here. It's a free course. You can learn and try it in less than an hour. It's always down in the description section down below my videos. It's there called The Daily Practice. Take the free course. It's also on the free tools page of my website. The link to the free tools page is at the top there. It's on the courses page of my website at crappychildhoodfairy.com. I hardly let you get away from this. It's free though, and it's worth giving a try. If you're having trouble managing your CPTSD symptoms, if you're feeling overwhelmed by life, by the people around you, you might find this as helpful as I have. When you get relief from the fearful and resentful thoughts, things get clearer. And, the fire kind of burns off, and the truth is there, and it cools down. It's not your fault that you were abused and neglected as a kid, but now it's you. You're the one who needs to stop acting out on the trauma and to learn to try things and notice your triggers when they happen and develop techniques to calm them, okay? Now, some people will be very open to learning what you're working on, and they'll support you, but probably not when you're yelling at them. So it kind of defeats the purpose. So how do we do that? How do we get neutral like that? You'll hear me say this a lot. It helps if you don't talk about it. When you're triggered and you know it, pause. Your thinking is getting dysregulated, and if it's anger, then by definition, that dysregulated anger is going to feel unreasonable to other people. It's an argument waiting to happen, and you'd be better off not having that argument. If you have to argue, just say to yourself, I can do it later. Later is better when you're regulated again, when you can choose your words and not just have them fly out like daggers. Now, this would be crazy talk if there wasn't, in fact, a way to get regulated, but we can do that. And it starts with owning the problem, not blaming other people that we feel that way, not with our words, and not in our minds, right? Because healing can really move forward when we can just recognize, oh, I'm having a reaction. And then this is the hard part. Resist the urge to say a lot about how you're feeling. You can say something like, oh dear, I'm having one of my reactions. Hold on a sec while I get myself sorted out. But don't set yourself up to insist that you get heard about this. Don't wave your feelings like a flag, you know, I'm triggered, I'm triggered. Trying to get other people to deal with that sort of thing tends not to work very well at all. So this is your new approach. This and giving yourself a little time out to write your fears and resentments can work wonders. And after that, whatever you need to discuss is going to be simpler and lighter and easier for another person to hear. And that's a good thing when it happens. But the nicest feeling of all is knowing that whatever happens, whatever present day reactions are rising up out of your childhood trauma, you'll be able to deal with it. You'll keep your boundaries. And gradually, you'll open your heart to all the love and fun that life has to offer you. Now, if you're resonating like crazy about the problem of connection with other people, you might want to take my connection quiz that lists common signs that trauma is limiting your ability to connect. And this boundary setting thing is a huge piece of that. So if you want to take that quiz, you'll find it on the free tools page of my website. The link to the free tools page is down in the description section below, near the top. You'll also find on that page the free course that I'm mentioning. So setting boundaries and learning even what those are is a big one for people with trauma. If you want to learn more, I've got this video about boundaries right here, and I will see you very soon.